Lightstone, who's here from corner office Leeds. Steve has a wealth of experience in sales and marketing, and I won't go into the details. I'll let him talk about himself, but we're really happy that he's here today to share his wealth of knowledge with you. He's also a UW alum, so he gets what you guys are all doing here and what you're going through. So he's had that experience himself.
I better leave on full Laurier.
Anyways, without further ado, here's Steve.
Thanks a lot. Thanks. My student ID number was started with 79. That's how far back I go, but with the university. I knew a lot of, or know a lot of the folks that whose names are on the buildings and on the streets here in Waterloo. Frank Tompa up on the North Campus was my Computer Science 101 professor. So I'm glad to be here. I'm going to get way more pragmatic and practical than Ali was. In that presentation, Ali's presentation was amazing. You know, thinking about it from 25 years of business experience, from my vantage point, everything he said was very wise. There's a lot of depth to the things that he said. So, you know, if you took notes or listened to the video, repeat it, you'll hear some superb ideas in there. So kudos to Ali and the business that he's built. But I'm going to get very practical. Those will become more the handouts will become more relevant in a few minutes. I just first wanted to show you a couple of slides. I collect slides and odd pictures, and I just wanted to share with you some things that I think might be a little humorous. This first one, I've been dying for the right place to show this, and I think this is absolutely the right place to show that slide. Just love that one. Maybe it's a little bit outrageous too. And this one's a favorite. We were talking about Apple versus Mac just earlier this morning. Stop making fun of us. This summer, a lot of my talk and Ali's talk was about just thinking and thinking clearly about business and about the things that you're trying to achieve. I was with my kids at March break. We were traveling back from Washington, D.C. and Virginia. Stopped at a McDonald's, and I went up to the counter and I asked for a Diet Coke. And the person on the other side of the counter said, "Is that for here or to go?" I didn't know what to say. If you've ever ordered just a Diet Coke, it only gets delivered in one way. She wasn't thinking, so that's not really good customer service. Anyways, this is a picture of a canoe trip. This is Algonquin Park. There's two moose in that picture. You see there's a baby one back there? And this is on Highway 60. We saw it and we pulled over immediately. We were the first to see it. We got out of our car and started taking some pictures, and then within 5-10 minutes, there were 15 cars stopped and people taking pictures. That's the best way to find wild animals if you're in Algonquin Park on Highway 60. If you see a car parked on the side of the road, they're watching they can see the animal. But something that I just found odd, and I just wanted to share it with you because it's odd, is this was one of the guys that was on the side of the road. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. There's the moose over there. So is he, cell phone connected on the internet and having a video conference with some family member somewhere? I don't know. But I had to take that shot. And just over here, there's like 20 people just out of the range of the shot. Anybody know who this person is? Now we're not getting humorous. His name's Donald Rumsfeld. He was the Secretary of Defense in George Bush's reign. And actually, he was also the Secretary of Defense in Gerald Ford's tenure as president. He was a combination of the youngest Secretary of Defense and the oldest Secretary of Defense. He has that honor. So he's the guy that's responsible for everything that's going on in Iraq and Afghanistan right now. The talk today is going to be about outrageous actions produce outrageous results, how to get to executives. And I'm going to tell you later on a story about how we got through to his office in charge of the Pentagon, the most security conscious place in the world, an organization that protects its executives to great degree, and we got to this person. So just some background about the topic of today's conversation: outrageous actions produce outrageous results. I heard that in a seminar about 20 years ago, and I thought that it was really apt for as a concept for young entrepreneurs to understand, that you can really reach way beyond what you think your grasp is. I think that's really going to be my, one of my key messages in the day today, or in this session. You can have conversations with very senior executives that you want to deal with. So I'm going to give you a story. It's not a business story, but it's kind of a story of a friend of mine from 25 years ago, from just after university days. And he and a friend went down into the States. They wanted they didn't want to spend a lot of money, but they wanted to live off their wiles and see what they could come up with. It was quite an adventure for them. And so they were doing things like they got to Washington, coincidentally, and they went to Georgetown, big party area, lots of bars and clubs there. And they decided, well, let's not take a hotel. We'll just put a toothbrush. We'll just take our toothbrush and meet some people, and we'll see what happens. Talk about outrageous. And at the end of the evening, 2 o'clock, they had not met anybody. And they were walking back to their car. They were going to just drive south. Oh, this didn't work. We're just going to keep driving through the night. And they met two girls, and they were going back to their car. The girls got into their car. The two guys got into their car. They decided, they were chatting. They decided to get together later on that evening. But the girls had drunk a little bit too much, and a motorcycle policeman came in, stopped the two girls in the car, and the two guys held back half a mile just to see what was going on. They thought, oh, this isn't going to work. They're going to get stopped, and we're going to just have to keep driving. And then a couple minutes later, after the policeman talked to the two girls, he got back on his motorcycle, and lights flashing, and he pulled out. The girls followed him, and it was a police cavalcade. It was a motorcycle cavalcade. The other two guys followed, and they went through the neighborhood over to the house of these two girls, or one of the girls. Turned out that the girl's car had a special license plate for parking access on Capitol Hill, and that the driver was the daughter of a congressman. So these two guys ended up staying overnight at the house of a congressman. Talk about outrageous actions produce outrageous results. Not a business story, but I thought you'd get a kick out of that. Now, 6 keys to get to executives. Now I'm going to start focusing on the right way to get to executives, and I wanted to do this by examples. The handout I gave you, you'll see, is a bunch of real examples that you can take with you. I had hoped that some mail would come my way in the last 2 or 3 weeks to my office that would exemplify the wrong way to do things. Does anybody know this person, by the way? Good, okay, so I don't have to. So do you want to buy printing services from, is there any compelling reason to buy, printing? The only thing good about this, and you won't know this, but he's in Clarkson, and he's sitting in the patio of my favorite breakfast spot. But aside from that, it was a nice flyer, but there's no real reason to do business with this guy. Good initiative, but as an executive, this has zero value to me. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can approach executives and actually get them to pay attention to you and get heard and get an audience with them. So why you should listen to me, I'll just give you a couple of seconds on corner office leads. Our business is helping technology firms get to the corner offices of the companies that they want to do business with. We do work across North America. We've done work for Oracle, for IBM, for SAP, for Microsoft, and a whole host of small technology firms. We just finished off a project where we got our customer into 45% of the companies that they asked us to target. Another project, we got them into 20% of the individual executives that they wanted us to target. So, and it's with a methodology. And so I'm going to share all of my methodology with you this morning. So typically, these kinds of campaigns, 1%, 1.5%, are considered fantastic results. And we got 20%, 45%. So I'm going to show you how you do that, okay? So you saw the title, you chose to come to this session, you saw the title of the session, How to Get to Executives. Well, so why get to executives? What do you want to achieve? What are the different reasons for wanting to have conversations with executives? What do you want to achieve? This is going to be an interactive for the rest of the way in. I'm going to ask you to think and contribute. So, yeah.
For the previous call, I was asked to do a presentation before the board, but before that, I wasn't sure exactly what were they expecting. So I booked a, well, not a company, but a small meeting with one of the staff. And she told me a lot about what she's actually wanting to hear from students.
Yeah.
That was my interaction with. But I wouldn't say it's very successful because I didn't prepare that well. So now I want to learn exactly how to approach it that.
So you didn't approach her well? You didn't prepare well? Is that what you
Yeah, I
said?
think that's,
Didn't
I didn't
pre-
prepare that well to
Okay.
ask all those questions that I could have asked.
Okay, great. Okay, so in your case, you wanted to talk to the executive because you were preparing for a board meeting.
Right.
And this person was on the board and you wanted to get a sense of, perfect. Okay, what else? Yep.
Networking opportunities in case you just happen to run into an executive and have to approach them.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So your comment was networking opportunities, and if you happen to run into an executive, my contention is the best way to build out a business is sit on a first-class flight seat on a transatlantic flight, and guaranteed the person next to you, and just keep going back and forth across the Atlantic, right? And guaranteed the people next to you are going to be senior executives that are in powerful positions, and you've got 6-7 hours, depending on where you're going, of their time. It's perfect. And I can't tell you how many people have done big business deals as a result of chance meetings on airplanes. We'll talk a little bit about what to say with executives. I'm not going to talk about networking to find executives. You probably get a ton of material or access to a ton of material about how to network. And there's lots of good stuff. Career Services have a lot of good stuff about how to network. I'm not going to talk about how to network because I know you can find that. I'm going to talk about this stuff you can't find on the internet. You can't find in school. You can't find in MBA programs. You can't find in sales. I cut my teeth at IBM 25 years ago. I went through all their basic sales training. This is not what IBM teaches. So this stuff is you can't find. So I'm going to focus on what if you don't have the networking opportunity? You just don't even know the person. I'm going to use as an example the story of James Corr. And James and I met at VeloCity in July. He gave a presentation on virtual phone. And we talked right after the presentation. I said, James, what you need is a high-powered advisor for your business to be successful because of the nature of the business. Perfect world, you need to get to the president of Sony Ericsson and get him to be your advisor. And so this session is going to be a pragmatic example, and James doesn't know president of Sony Ericsson. I don't know the president of Sony Ericsson. But this session is going to be a pragmatic example of how he, by example, how he can get to this person and get some of his time. Other reasons for talking to executives? Go.
Maybe selling an idea, proposal, something, get them to help you, like you said, advice, like career advice or any advice.
Yep, selling an idea, getting advice, career advice, selling a proposal, getting funds. The example that we're going to use is that James is asking the president of Sony Ericsson to mentor him and spend some time with him as a mentor. Okay. Okay. So let me give you an idea of what this of this handout and how to read it. There's a legend on the top left of every page, and what we're going to do is, because there's so many concepts, we're going to look at these letters, these documents in layers. We're going to look first at design and language. We're going to talk about the ask and the follow-up, talk about the homework and the preparation and the content and the process. So we'll go through each layer one at a time. And what I want you to do is look at these documents and tell me what you see, and tell me and what your observations are. Are there good things? Are there bad things? Are there questions? So, and we'll be flipping back and forth. We're going to spend most of our energy on 1 and 2. 1 is kind of a sales letter, asking for time, trying to achieve the same objective, but it's written in more of the classic sales letter. Most marketing and salespeople in today's world will write this kind of letter. Okay? And it's a business letter, but it's also a letter that James is using as a student with an idea. hopefully a lot like what you are, that wants a mentor. Letter number 2 is a letter about, that's using the techniques and the approach that we're going to really deep dive into. Letter number 3, we won't spend a lot of time with, but letter number 3 I thought I'd put there anyways in your package because it's a real live business letter. So this is from a technology company called Evidence Software trying to get to very senior executives. And we'll talk, and I'll just refer to that for some of the examples as we go through this. Letter number 4 is actually an email, and just the email format of letter number 2. And we'll talk a little bit about that using an email versus using a letter during the conversation. So, first concept is that you need to know a little bit about how executives work. Executives want to talk. I wonder how. I didn't expect that to go blue. Do you guys prefer the blue back? I don't have any more slides. Prefer the blue background or the white? I'll just leave it blue. So, executives want to talk. Executives at the senior levels all have, their mission is to implement some kind of change. No executive is there to just keep the status quo. They have to do something. They have to change, and they understand that they have to keep their ears to the ground. They're smart enough to know they have to keep their ears to the ground, and they have to listen to the outside. And they've got this real challenge because there's literally hundreds and hundreds of people from the outside trying to approach them with their ideas, with their notions. They can't possibly, and they get literally thousands of emails a week with people, unsolicited people that they don't know, trying to approach them. It's very difficult for these executives to figure out, well, who do I want to talk to? Who can give me information that I need in order to achieve my objectives? And in a lot of cases, so that's in business, that's absolutely true in business. It's also true as executives. A lot of executives these days want to mentor. I'm an executive. I mentor over a dozen students now, and I advise on 3 student companies. And I'm actively active in the university here, giving presentations. I got a couple more presentations on starting up a business coming up at the end of the month through Career Services. I'm an example. These realize that these senior executives, these gray-haired executives, they want to talk. They want to help you. They want to give back to the community. But they're surrounded. They're inundated, and they're surrounded by what I call gatekeepers. They've got an executive assistant, a secretary, whose job it is. You might have heard this term, gatekeeper, is to keep the walls up and protect the executive from all these people that are trying to get to that person. Most people in business think that those secretaries are a problem, and so much of their activity, their strategy is to get around the secretaries, to get around the gatekeepers. And they don't realize that the actual truth is that the secretary's job isn't to keep everybody out. The secretary's job is to let the right people in and give the right people access. So the trick is to get to executives, you've got to get the executive assistant. You've got to turn the gatekeeper into a guide. And we'll talk a lot about how to do that. And it's unbelievable how powerful that can be if you work with the gatekeepers. So that's a little bit about the big picture. Executives want to talk. By the way, those gatekeepers, the secretaries, are often MBAs. They're often very strong independent business or business people in their own right, and they need to be treated with a lot of respect. I'll show you how to do that. So we've talked about one concept, that executives do want to talk. So let's get into the document now, and let's look at the document, just document 1 and 2, from a design perspective and from the use of language. I don't want to talk yet about the content and what the words say, but can you give me any observations about how you see the difference between the design, the layout of document 1 and document 2? Go ahead.
The first one is a lot more wordy than the second one. Like the second one, it's got shorter paragraphs, it's got single line sentences and stuff like that.
Yeah, first one's a lot wordier, and second one's got a lot shorter sentences. One of the terms in design for that is the first one's got a lot of dark space, and the second one has a lot of white space. It's a lot softer and less the second one's a lot softer and much less intimidating to read than the first one. Agreed? Okay, what other comments? What other observations? Yeah?
You've highlighted the main aspects here in bold and in a larger font.
Yeah, bolded the main aspects, the three key questions. Yeah, bolded, and I've got a header, and I've got a postscript. Go ahead.
In the first one, you ask for more time, more commitment, and the second one, you kind of ask for 15 minutes.
I'm going to get to that. I'm going to hold that to the second one, the ask and follow-up, but you're bang on, and that's a key concept. We'll talk about that in a minute. We'll focus on design and layout. The header is important because surveys say that when people read a letter, they'll read a headline, and then they'll read the postscript. And we'll talk about the power of the postscript in terms of how that helps you with the process. Big part of this, sort of stepping back for a moment, a big part of this, what we're talking about is it's not just the content of what you say, it's how you say. And I believe that in business, easily 50% of your success is how you present this call to action, this request, not just what you say. And I think that you as students, if you want to implement some of these things, you've got even more of your success will be dependent on how you do this. Sorry, somebody had a hand up on another observation? Yep.
The second one really grabbed our attention. The first one just everyday kind of normal business setting.
You said, so the first one had some repetition?
No, I'm saying the second one really grabs our attention.
Oh, grabs your attention, okay.
Because when I look at it, oh, give 15 minutes, why? Then you probably just read on.
Yeah.
The first one, when I look at it, okay.
Yep,
what's
good.
going on?
Yep, great. Okay, go ahead. Did you have a... Oh, okay. Another one is, just in terms of the language, there's the use of content, or the use of adjectives and adverbs. It's deeply embedded, but obviously this letter, the first letter one, is I've written so that I can make these comments. But there's a couple of comments here. Paragraph 3, my vision for virtual phone is to provide a world-beating, seamless virtual backup facility. So the word world-beating, well, that's an adjective. That's... James, you chose those words. No, it's James's words, not the word. It's not the words of a third party. If it was the words of a trusted third party, that'd be different. But he's adding that. There's another one in paragraph 1, building an exciting company. Well, it's an editorialization. The word exciting. State of the facts. Take out the adjectives and adverbs. There's another one there's a concept called franking that's exemplified in the header in number 2. Waterloo instead of University of Waterloo, or IP. I think somewhere in here there's the phrase IP. Yeah, paragraph 2, I want to sell my IP. Well, in letter writing 101 they say, well, extend out your acronyms, don't use acronyms. And I think that's actually, you don't have to tell an executive what IP stands for. They know, right? And franking is the concept of actually making them think, writing copy that makes them think. And Waterloo, not the greatest example, but they're going to think, oh, that means University of Waterloo, I understand, and they'll move on. But they'll do that in like milliseconds, so you don't have to worry about that. And so there's that concept. Okay, so that's a couple comments on design. So let's talk about the ask. You said that the ask in letter 2 is 15 minutes. And the ask, where is the ask in letter 1? It's deeply embedded. It's hard to find. How's an executive going to... all the executive is going to do is going to scan this. There's nothing to pick... There's nothing to draw the eyes into for the executive to read. So the ask is... It's a bad ask. You're not going to get an hour of the executive's time. And you're not going to... They're not even going to see it. So, an example of that is, in terms of outrageous, the company's working with the Irish Trade Commission right now, Enterprise Ireland. And they're trying to get executives in the medtech industry in Canada to go to a conference in Ireland. And a couple of months ago, they did a campaign where this is outrageous. They said, they sent them some kind of letter or note saying, we'll give you a free trip to Ireland. Come to the show. And come to the conference, and we'll pay your way to Ireland. what a great deal. They thought this is amazing. They're going to have a great response. 0. Nobody responded. They were asking too much. So you got to think about exactly what you're asking for. And when you're talking to executives, to your comment earlier about the board meeting, you really want to be crystal clear on what your ask is. You can't ask for too much. You have to earn the right. So James in his letter is asking for 15 minutes on the phone. Have you ever heard of the author Malcolm Gladwell? He did Tipping Point. He's also written a book called Blink. And Blink is all about this concept of making decisions really fast. And I think executives do that. What we found in the 7 years of doing business is that if you ask for an hour, if you ask for a half an hour of an executive's time, it's too much time to ask. But 15 minutes seems to be this threshold where if you ask for 15 minutes and you stick to it, they're more likely to give it to you. The trick is then you have to figure out exactly how to use that 15 minutes well. Talking about 15 minutes, what time do I have? I didn't figure out where I was.
You're good until 12:15.
12:15, oh good, okay, great. Okay, great. Okay, so that's, and then the follow-up. Now look at the follow-up. Where's the follow-up? Contrast the two follow-ups in the two different letters. Letter 1, it's in the last paragraph, and letter 2, it's in the postscript. Letter 1. Oh, and by the way, there's a reference to attachments. I'm not a big believer in attachments either. Like, you don't want to give too much information to the executive. All it does is give them a reason to say no. All you're trying to do in this letter is get 15 minutes, not sell the business plan. So be clear on that. So the ask in letter 1 is, I'll call you in a week to follow up. The ask in letter 2 is, I propose a call at this time, and I'm going to talk to Wanda Williams, which is this person's secretary, and to set up a time. So this person doesn't have to do anything, but now Wanda has to do something. Very different asks. The first one, follow-ups. So the first one, in letter 1, the follow-up is, I'll call you. Well, you know what? Wanda's going to be sifting through all the phone calls anyways. You'll never get to Bert. You'll get to Wanda, and Wanda will just say, sorry, no. There's this concept that's called the hour of champions. You call people you call executives before 8 or after 5 when the secretary's gone, when the gatekeepers are gone, and they're more likely to pick up the phone. Well, you know what? They are more likely to pick up the phone, but now you've just interrupted them. The hour of champions is because they want to get work done without interruptions, and now you've interrupted them. Your first step with them is on a bad footing. You've interrupted their day. So I don't believe in hour of champions as a concept either, but I do believe very strongly in leveraging the executive assistant. So there's a lot of subtleties in that, and I think you could use that for the things that you want to do. Okay, so that's the ask and the follow-up. Let's talk about doing your homework. What do you see in the two letters that exemplifies homework and preparation for the letter? Go ahead.
You can see certain things about looking at the resume. I see you have a similar to the electronic engineering degree you received in 1978, and then later on he talks about your experience at Sony Ericsson since 1996 and blah 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 blah. So it looks like he's read the president's resume. Yep.
Yeah, good. That was on the profile, on the executive's profile. So did everybody hear that? In letter 1, there's a reference to Bert's engineering degree, electronic engineering degree in 78, and the fact that he worked at Ericsson, Data General, and DEC. What about the homework in letter 2? What homework was done there?
You found out the secretary's name.
That's exactly it. But nothing about the Bert's profile. Found out the secretary's name. So comments on letter 1 and the homework. It's good to know that stuff, but a lot of seasoned business people this is a real contentious comment, and I love bringing out contentious comments. A lot of seasoned business people will say, you got to prepare like heck. You got to study these people and their profile before you talk to them. I don't believe that. I don't think you need to. I think if you go with a well thought out idea, a clear idea of what you want to achieve, and and execute the process of approaching them well, you'll get what you need. In my opinion, all that what you've just observed is in letter 1 is saying, I'm smart enough to read the web. And I'm proving that I've read the web. Nothing relevant to the ultimate result of your objective of your letter, and nothing, and it's wasting their time. Well, I know I got my electrical engineering degree in 1978. You don't have to tell me that. So versus letter 2, where the homework, the preparation was getting to the executive or finding the executive assistant's name. That's really tough, but it's critical because the executive assistant will see that. And what you've just done is you've shown her a ton of respect. You know, it's like what Ali was talking about, respecting all the people that are working with his company, respecting his customers. Now you're respecting the executive assistant. What we do with letters at Corner Office Leads, we courier these letters to our executives that we target. And on the way bill, we address the way bill to the executive assistant, not to the executive. Executive assistant is going to get that courier anyways, and that person's going to vet the document anyways. Well, now you've just shown a ton of respect for that executive assistant. It's an amazingly powerful way of getting that person to be on your side, to turn that person from a gatekeeper to a guide. And you don't need to do that all the time. I'll show you an even more effective way to do it with emails. That won't cost you the investment of a courier. So how do you get the executive assistant's name? That's also a tough one. Well, you know, you need to call up and you need to do the homework. You need to approach them and ask them the right questions. So one of the things that you want to do when you ask that is you don't want to just call up their switchboard and say, who's the assistant to Bert? What's his name? Bert Nordberg. Who's the assistant to Bert Nordberg? You're not going to get that answer. You're a little bit too direct. My suggestion is you be a little bit more subtle. You say, I'm preparing a letter for Bert Nordberg, and I just want to confirm information. I want to do my homework right. I want to get all of the spelling and address information correct. Is he at, and I'd walk through the address, even though I know the address. I'd walk through the address, right? You know, 701 Development Drive, Research Triangle Park. Is his, you know, and who would his assistant's name be? So now you've kind of proven that you know something. You've earned the right to ask the assistants. Go, oh, why do you need the assistant's name? Well, because when I follow up on my letter, I don't want to interrupt Mr. Nordberg's day. And I want to follow up. I just want to follow up with his assistant. How can you say no to that? So now you've got the assistant. So that's a little bit about the homework. I contend that getting the executive assistants is the most important thing. And in fact, what I tell my customers is that if an executive doesn't have an executive assistant, doesn't have a secretary, then they're not powerful enough for us to approach for a meeting. So how's that? They love that. What? And for you too. You know, if you know when in whatever your endeavor is, whatever your need is to get to these executives, go high. Go to Bert Nordberg, the president of Sony Ericsson, and see if you can and see if you can get. What may happen is you might get referred to one of his lieutenants. That's okay. You know, if you get as a mentor the lieutenant of the president of Sony Ericsson, you're doing pretty good, right? That's pretty good in James's experience. Okay, so let's move on to the content. Oh no, hold on. Let me give you a couple of another story about going after being creative and finding information. Washington Mutual, big bank on the West Coast, was in the news. It actually defaulted a few months ago. It actually defaulted 2 weeks after I bought some stock, which is really bad. So I'm not going to give you any kind of financial investment advice because my investment went to zero. But in their day, they were they had amazingly well-trained gatekeepers. You couldn't figure out who their executives were. You couldn't even get their names. It was fantastic, headquartered in Seattle. And we just tried to figure out, okay, I don't even know who the right person is to target, let alone find out who their executive assistant is. And so what we ended up doing was we looked in all kinds of detail in their annual reports. We found a listing of all the properties that they owned and called the switchboard of the largest property that they owned in California, and figuring, you know what, maybe they have less trained switchboard people, and maybe they will give us the information that they need, but maybe they have the directory of the entire company. We called them up and we got everything that we needed. All the information we needed was right there. Fantastic. So be creative in how you approach these things. Another example of maybe it's, you could consider it outrageous. An outrageous action produces an outrageous result. Goes back to my first entrepreneurial venture in the early 90s, and I was representing a code generator, a Cobol code generator for open systems. Has anybody ever heard of the word Cobol? It's old. Okay, so don't be judgmental about that. But our company wanted to get a leadership position really fast in the Canadian marketplace. So we represented this Cobol code generator that generated all three types of Cobol in its day. It was all Unix-based Cobol. Liant, Micro Focus, and RM Cobol were the three Cobols. And we sat back and said, how do we get this leadership position really fast? We became leaders in 3 months through a multi-step process. And I'll just walk through the steps. And I think this is, just before I walk through them, it's an example of thinking. Go back to that Diet Coke. Was that for here or to go? Go back to that example. You got it. In business, you got to really think hard about how you're going to approach things. And there's amazing, and be creative about what you do. So step one was we had a list of the customers. So we sent out a survey. And the survey was basically here are 15 issues revolving around open systems Cobol. Tell us what the priority is for you. What's most important? What are the most important 5? What are the least important 5? And we've sent this out to all your peers, and we're going to give you the results of this. And we're going to start up a newsletter. So a month later, we got the results. We published the results of the survey. We sent out the newsletter, and the top 2 issues were the content of the newsletter. On the front page of the newsletter was an ad saying, come to an Open Systems Cobol presentation in Toronto. We ended up getting 65 people to this presentation from nothing, no money, like no startup funds, from nothing. And we were sponsoring this seminar. We then went to the 3 vendors, the 3 Cobol vendors, and said, we're having this seminar, and we said, your other 2 competitors are coming, and you're going to pay a third of the total cost of the seminar. And then we went to the next vendor and said, you got to come to this seminar. The other 2 vendors are coming already, and you've got to pay a third of the cost. So it cost us nothing. We had the right people fly up to Toronto to present, and our company, we're the facilitators. It was our conference. And so instantly, with 65 people in our audience, which was half the entire market for open systems Cobol, that's another issue. That's why that company's not around anymore. But half the company, or half of the marketplace, was seeing this my company as a leader, drawing in all the main open systems Cobol vendors. Anyway, something to think about in terms of multi-step. So let's talk about the content now, and what observations do you have on the content of the 2? Notice there's a whole paragraph on who University of Waterloo is in letter 1. More, 2 paragraphs on what virtual phone is all about. A ton of information in letter 1. Is it relevant to the objective? If the objective is, give me some time. Will the person know about University of Waterloo? Probably. What about, so letter 2, very short to the point. Now, so here's what I think one of the key elements of talking to executives, both when you get to the executive and how to get to executive. You need to, the way you have to differentiate yourself as a student at the university is you got to show incredible clarity of thought. You got to show that you, and focused sense of purpose. You got to tell them, I know exactly what I want, and I have very clear, I did a lot of thinking about this letter, letter number 2. What would I do if I was James? And I think that the leverage that he has is that he is a student and that he can think clearly and articulate what he wants to get out of the conversation. So this letter, letter number 2, is all about here's what I want to get out of the conversation. It's less about here's why you should talk to me. And we'll talk about letter 3, which is more about here's why you should talk to me. But this one's about, hey, I can think clearly about this, and I know exactly what I want. These executives are incredibly smart, and they're quick to make judgments. They're quick to make decisions, and they're very impatient. They want to get to the point. What do you want? So the ask is in the header. The ask is on sentence 1, and the ask is on the last sentence. It's an expression. You're expressing that you know exactly what you want. Give me 15 minutes. And here's what I want to talk about. And so what's a realistic and viable business plan? How do I get what I need? Who could mentor me? Ultimately what James is going to talk about in the 15 minutes is, would you be my mentor? Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's, who is somebody else that could mentor? He might end up with one of Bert's lieutenants. So let's look at letter 3 for a moment. And I told you that letter 3 was a real-life example. These guys got 60 meetings in 60 days as a result of this letter. Barbara Coster, who is on the who's addressed there on the letter, she's the corporate CIO for Prudential in New Jersey in the United States. She has 25,000 people working for her. And Evidence Software, who this letter came from, is a very small, like a $5 million business, very small. And we got Frank Sissio, the executive at Evident, a 15-minute appointment with Barbara Coster. Unbelievable that happened. But in this one, I just wanted to show you how it's different for business. We highlighted some company names of customers: Pfizer, American Express, Bank of America, all good, well-known, recognized names. We talk about stories. British Telecom saved 1.2 million. IBM did, there's a story about IBM. A manufacturer saved $500,000 in a very short amount of time. It's all about, hey, here's what we've done for other customers. So, if you're at a point where you have some proof points, that might be useful. In letter 2, there is one proof point about the business plan. The virtual phone business plan won a competition at VeloCity. That's a little bit of a credibility statement. But the real point is, really express some clarity of thought. And I in fact think that these 3 questions in letter 2 could be better. They could be even more finely adjusted. And I think that this letter would be well received by Bert. One of the most important things is it's totally different from all the other letters that he's going to receive. All the other letters are going to be like letter 1. Another example comes from my background of content and really thinking through the content to make sure you achieve your objectives and think differently about the content comes from, before I founded Corner Office Leads, I worked for MKS here in Waterloo, and before that I worked at a company called Pega Systems, small technology firm selling to banks out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. And the story of how I got hired there I think is worth sharing with you. Did anybody see me present at the CUTC in March? I presented at the Canadian Undergraduate Technology Conference. I shared this story with them. They loved it. I found the job posting on the internet. It was for the country manager for Pega Systems in Canada, and I submitted my resume. And I'm thinking, I'm one of hundreds of people. How do I differentiate myself? How do I show that I'm the one that they should seriously consider? Everybody reviews their website, right? Just reviewing the website that's just assumed that you'll take the time to do your homework to research the website. That's not good enough to differentiate yourself. Everybody does it. So I did look at the website, and as I was looking, I found a press release from 3 years prior announcing the opening of the Canadian office and announcing the hiring of the Canadian country manager, the person that I was whose job I was trying to get now, 3 years later. And it had the person's name. And I 411'd that person, found his phone number, called him at home, and I said, listen, you know, he wasn't with the company anymore. I want to make sure you knew that. I know you used to work for Pega Systems. You don't know me, but I'm thinking of applying for a position, and I think it was your position. And can you just spend a few minutes with me and chat with me about what, you know, why did you leave? What did you like about the company? So we spent 15 minutes over the phone. He was obliging. It was a pleasant phone call. And then somehow my resume earned me the right to get a phone interview with the VP of sales and one of the sales managers. And now think about this from a content. You know, at that point I'm just another sales guy. I have all the traits of the other 100 people that have the similar resume to me. But I made sure in that conversation I said to them that I figured out the guy's name, the old person's name. I called him. I took the initiative to call him. I talked to him. I asked him a bunch of questions. I didn't even care about what information I had gathered from that conversation. But the fact that I had called this guy and Canada 411'd him and talked to him blew these people away at the other end of the phone. The job was mine. And that got me the interview with the president, but the job was mine already because I had taken that initiative. So think laterally about working with executives. You got to differentiate yourself. And don't do things with goofy things like that guy's flyer that don't work, or trips to Ireland. Trips to Ireland. These executives can go to Ireland anytime. They're wealthy enough, they're powerful enough to go to Ireland. That's not what I'm talking about. Golf balls with their name on it or their company logo. Tricks like that. That's not what it's about. You got to be smart with it. Okay, so where are we? We're talking about. I think we've talked about content. Now, process. In the finishing few minutes, let's talk a little bit about the process, and that's really embedded in the postscript. I will call Wanda Williams and set up an appointment if it's convenient with her. And now Wanda's engaged. It's very, very helpful to your overall success. It's critical to get Wanda to be your guide and not your gatekeeper. Does that make sense? And you can do that in a lot of ways. So letter 4 is the email version of the same letter as letter 2. And the way we use emails, which will be a lot more cost effective for you, is we find out Wanda's name and we call Wanda on the phone and say, Wanda, you don't know me. I want to introduce myself to Bert. Can I send an email to you for you to look at and think about whether you can present it to Bert? And now you've just asked her for permission. Now you've just started the process. You've earned the right to send this email to her because she might say no, and you know what? Okay, move on to another executive. Find one of Bert's lieutenants, or find president of one of the other vendors. But you've asked permission. Now she's going to look at this, and she's going to say, okay, I'll pass this on to Bert, or she'll pass it on to one of the lieutenants. She's in control, and she'll help you. The content of the email is very similar. You can see the call, the call to action in the page 1. Would Bert give me 15 minutes? You're respecting her. Can you forward this email to Mr. Norberg for his review? We get fantastic success. The 45% penetration of the project that we did, that I told you about, was using this email approach. So you can do it with emails as well. One comment on letters, though. It seems to me that executives, at least my peer group of executives, still treat letters with a lot more respect than other forms of communication. Maybe that's because of legal documents get presented in letter format, but letters they seem to treat with more respect. I'm a big, I don't like the notion of mass emails, because mass emails from your perspective is really inexpensive. Fractions of a penny to even less to send out an email. You can send out millions of them. But the same lack of respect that you show your email going out is received with the same lack of respect on the other side. Spam filters, they'll take 95% of those, and just nobody will even see them at the other end. Or then the last 5%, people look at it, oh, this is junk. This is a mass mailing. I'm not even going to look at it. You might have the best idea in the world. You might be the greatest student that has the best person candidate for a mentor in the world, but you're not even going to get through. So anyways, my time is effectively up, but I just wanted to find out if you had any questions before we close off. What questions do you have? Yeah?
Did you guys ever try having the secretary forward the email to the executive?
Yeah.
Asking through email instead of for phone conversation? It takes less time?
Well, so the process in the email would be, can you forward this email on to Bert for his review? So it's forwarded over, but still the ask is, can I have 15 minutes with Bert? Bert's going to say to the executive assistant, yes or no. But the email has come from Wanda into Bert's email, not from James Corr. Who's James Corr? I don't know this person. Delete.
I was just wondering, instead of asking for a 15-minute conversation on the phone, just ask them all the things you need in the email.
Well, okay. So the question is, why not just let him answer the questions in the email? I think you can, and I think there's good place for that if you've got a very, very specific question. But I think there's incredible value in having the conversation. I think you want whatever your objective is, whether it's in business to make a sale or to have the conversation with the person on the board or to find a mentor, you want to have that. You want to establish that human relationship. You want to have the 15 minutes because you don't know where that conversation will lead. The two of you, in this case Bert and James, are going to have this conversation that's going to produce results that you don't know going in. So I really believe that you should have that 15-minute conversation. It really begs the comment about the bigger issue that, and this helps you differentiate yourself as well from all the other people, is too much of business and society is people are talking on their keyboards. They're not talking face to face. And I think that you want to strive to have that personal relationship, that even if it's 5 minutes, ask them for 5 instead of 15. But having, you differentiate yourself by having the conversation directly with them. Too many people, too many salespeople, too many executives hide behind their emails and just talk via email or Facebook or Twitter or whatever. And there's great opportunity to differentiate yourself. Good question. What other questions? Yep.
I have one. So sometimes when you're approaching for a certain purpose, say for mentorship, you may have like a number of people in mind from the same company, not necessarily like the highest up in the company. So would you say that it's not advisable to contact multiple contact persons at one point?
Great question. So the question was, okay, if in Sony Ericsson's case, there might be several candidate executives to be your mentor. Do you use the approach and target all of them at once or one at a time? That was your question? I think you need to go one at a time because, and you can do it sequentially, but I think you need to go one at a time because what happens is the secretaries, the executive assistants are going to look at this. Bert's assistant might say, you know what, I know Bert hates Canadians, doesn't like University of Waterloo, and won't have anything to do with her student mentor. So, but I know that this executive over here, one of his lieutenants, or a lieutenant of a lieutenant, is willing to be a mentor. I'm going to pass it over to this person. And you don't know where that's going to go. So it wouldn't look good on you if you've approached that person, what we call the referral, independently as Wanda approaching, and now the referral's got these two. Wait a second. Does he want me or does he want Bert? Right? Versus Bert sending it to this person. It has a lot more credibility. It has really great credibility because now it's not just Wanda saying deal with this, it's Wanda, the representative of Bert, saying it. And in a lot of cases, Bert would look at the email and say, you know what, this is the right person to be the mentor and to spend 15 minutes with James. And now the odds of you getting the appointment is even greater because it's coming from Bert. Did that answer your question? Okay, what else? Good questions. Go ahead.
Perhaps just a follow-up comment more than a question. I noticed that like in the first letter, the questions are more close-ended. Is it more intended? Because in the second letter, they're more...
Great. Yeah, great observation. So the difference, first letter 1 had a lot of closed-ended questions. Letter 2 had open-ended questions, just to make sure everybody knows. Closed-ended questions are questions that typically get answered by yes, no. And open-ended questions are whys and hows. And you don't know what you're going to get. It's exactly that. If you ask an executive a closed-ended question, it's not showing that you're thinking crisply and you're trying to get at the core of the issues that or of your objective. Open-ended questions will garner. It's a classic sales technique, as you ask as many open-ended questions as you can, because you want to get information that you don't expect. Another good example. I talked to an executive years ago. I was in competition in a sales competition. My competitors had almost effectively the same product. We were almost selling a commodity. It was software. And we're selling to AXA Insurance in London, Ontario. And it was really difficult to differentiate our products, the speeds and feeds of our products. And so I asked the guy that was in charge of the evaluation. I said to him, well, you're doing so much work on this. What's in it for you? And his answer was, well, if I do this evaluation and business case well, it might get me a promotion. Well, then that just showed me the way to compete against the other company. I didn't sell my product anymore. I was selling to help him build the best business case possible. All I did was help him build this business case to get his promotion, and he understood that. Differentiated myself completely. So it's what's in it for you? Completely open-ended question. Yep.
You talk a lot about differentiation, but what happens in the future when people start using this idea more and more, and then you start to get same type of things? How do you differentiate yourselves after that?
What, using the ideas that we've just talked about, the process, and you see that a lot of this is about process. It's not just about the content. So your question is,
what happens in the future when everyone starts using this?
Well, so I'm taking an implied compliment that you like the process by saying that everyone. So I appreciate that very much. I don't think I've been doing this for 7 years. I haven't come up against anybody that does anything close to this. It's a hard idea to implement. There's a lot of work involved in getting this done right, figuring out who the right people are to target, finding out Wanda's name, getting really thinking about the letter and the content of the letter. It's very difficult. And in business, a lot of folks take the easy way, unfortunately. Fortunately for corner office leads. A lot of this is based on a book from the 80s called Selling to Veto by Anthony Parinello, Selling to Veto. Veto is an acronym for Very Important Top Officer. And it was a classic in the late 80s. And if you get that book, you'll see some of the concepts. And we've taken it, and we're now Veto for the 21st century, Veto on steroids. But a lot of the concepts embedded in the conversation that we've just had come from that document, that book. So it's been around for 25 years, and it hasn't spread. And then the other answer to your question is, then you've got to figure out a different way to differentiate yourself, to be different yet again, in a smart, intelligent way. I wish I could tell you that these comments are outrageous. These ideas are outrageous. They're not really outrageous. They're a lot of common sense. But they will produce outrageous results for you. Thanks very much. I'm here all for the rest of the afternoon. Love to have conversations with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Just on behalf of all the residents of VeloCity and a great session today. We want to thank you for coming in and taking your time out of a Saturday, which I know is a sunny Saturday, but we really appreciate it. So
Thank you.
just
Oh, is it sunny out there? Well, then I'm not available for the rest of the day.